Hello and welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Kavat. In Pakistan on October 6th, Chinese nationals were targeted and 2 killed in an attack as their convoy left the international airport in Karachi. The suicide bomber left this video message.
China, your interests are not welcome here. We will not stop, we will not heal, and we will not rest until Balochistan is free. This is your final warning. Your investments will be burned. Your personnel will not be saved, and your allies will fall.
The tragedy is just one of an increasing number of attacks on Chinese over the past 5 years by militant groups from the region of Balochistan and beyond. They have waged a low-level insurgency against the Pakistani state since 2004. The groups say the government has deprived them of their rights, exploited the region for oil and mineral resources, and carried out a campaign of disappearances of men from Balochistan. What has any of this got to do with China? How will Beijing respond, and how much damage is this having on the Pakistan-China relationship? Joining us today are Ghulam Ali, Hong Kong Research Center for Asian Studies Deputy Director, and Mumin Chen, National Hsing University Graduate Institute of International Politics Professor. A very warm welcome to both of you on the show today. The October 6th attack was a clear message to China's Premier Li Qiang. He arrived in Islamabad on October 14th for a summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or SCO, led by Beijing and Moscow. Li is the highest-ranking Chinese official to visit Pakistan since President Xi Jinping in 2015. On arriving, Li held talks with Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. In their joint statement, they announced, quote, tighter security measures to protect Chinese nationals and create a safe environment for cooperation. Dr. Ali, let me start with you first. So, Li and Shehbaz, however, they did not set up a joint security company. Does this surprise you?
I think not, because in the presence of Pakistani military and intelligence agencies who are responsible for the security of Chinese, if they have failed to protect the Chinese repeatedly, a private company, how could it make such a goal?
But then what do you think they had in mind by tighter security measures?
I think it's just a rhetorics. And Pakistani side is used to show these kind of rhetorics after every attacks. Tighter security, foolproof security. I don't see them beyond mere rhetorics.
Right. Professor Chen, do you agree with that? I mean, how concerned must Beijing be that these attacks keep happening?
No, I have a little bit different view on this issue, because I think right now what China did in Pakistan is around like a 40–50% of their promised investment over there. And so in future, I expect that China will have more investment and projects being complete, and they will have to protect their strategic assets over there. So right now, even the Pakistani government or Chinese government did not say that we want to have a more security forces or cooperation over there. But in future, they probably had to do that, right, particularly in some very important projects like Gwadar Port. And if Gwadar Port eventually become a naval base for China or become more important in military sense, I think they had to do something with that.
Dr. Ali, in the experience of the Chinese dam construction further north in Gilgit-Baltistan did show that PLA soldiers needed to be brought in. Do you think that that is something that Beijing is, however, very careful about introducing the presence of more PLA officers?
Well, I personally don't think Chinese military presence in Pakistan currently, and I don't think it will be anytime in future. Reason, I repeat the same. If Pakistani military, which has access to all resources in terms of military information, security informations, if it cannot protect, why China need to bring which would have a limited access, not familiar with the region, not access to the Pakistan's whole machinery? Second, I think it's exaggerated perspective that China brought PLA in Pakistan.
Do you mean for the construction of the northern end of the corridor?
No, to the best of my knowledge, China never brought military in Pakistan. And keeping in view China's strategy and Pakistan as a quagmire, China will never want security involved in Pakistan.
Right, okay. Professor Chen, let's move now to some of the deals, or basically the outcome of the SCO. Do you think that Pakistan would be disappointed that there weren't major deals struck by Li's visit?
Of course, Pakistan want more Chinese investment and support because Pakistan right now today is still a developing country, and particularly infrastructure that is not fully complete. So they need a lot of help. So who is going to give Pakistan help? Americans didn't give much, and so in the past 15, 20 years, we saw China gave them a lot of support. Remember in 2015, when Xi Jinping visited Pakistan, just in one short trip, he signed like $46 billion of a deal. And in total, people estimate that the Chinese investment and also loans and grant to Pakistan is over 65 billion of US dollars. And but in recent years, because the China economy going down, and so the Chinese investment and also loans are also reduced. So that is why Pakistan government want to get more through Li Qiang's visit to SCO summit this time.
Mm. And do you think that how disappointed was Pakistan in not getting that energy restructuring deal? The MOU on that. That was particularly something that they aimed for.
Yeah, because that for any developing society, that the energy sector and the transportation are the most important sectors they want to get. Mm-hmm. And China made a lot of promises before. So this time, I think that the Pakistan government saw that they could get what they want as they did. Before, and but China, I think, when when they invest in foreign countries, they became more cautious compared to 5-10 years ago.
Dr. Ali, there was a road for major road projects that didn't get, sort of finalized agreement on. There's even a Pakistan space center. Do you think that the caution that Professor Chen mentioned, do you think that is to do with just the general approach of Beijing, having to be a lot more cautious, or do you think it's a response to perhaps the security situation in Pakistan?
I think Professor Chen is right in this assessment. Basically, China started to invest a lot in Pakistan. As he mentioned, just 40+ billion in the first trip. But over the years, Pakistani military and intelligence agencies failed to provide security. And for China, security is the first key requirement for any investment. So over the 10 years down the road, as security situation, instead of improving, deteriorated in Pakistan, China became more cautious.
Right. And let's go to some of the roots of that, the breakdown in the security. The October 6th attack was claimed by the separatist group Baloch Liberation Army of Pakistan's southwestern province of Balochistan. 5 days later, unidentified gunmen killed 21 coal miners in the province. Then on October 13th, a police station in neighboring Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province was attacked. No group has stepped forward to claim these attacks. Professor Chen, let's talk about, what's behind the rise in violence.
These two regions has been remote and underdeveloped in Pakistan. Pakistan, most of the political elites and also the most richest regions are on the east side, Punjab and Sindh. And particularly Balochistan, before Pakistan independence, this used to be an independent kingdom. And so they had their local identity, rich local culture. So they think they have been ignored for decades by the central government. So it's very natural for them to pursue independent status. And they saw that anything that the Pakistan government doing right now, introducing Chinese investments and projects into this region, will undermine their autonomy. They also undermine their will to gain independence. So you see more clashes like this in that region, and also in the north side.
Dr. Ali, that feeling of exploitation of the region, calls for autonomy being ignored, marginalization. What are the other roots of this insurgency?
I think actually what he said is right. They are marginalized. There is no platform for these nationalist parties to express their concern. And most importantly is that military's suppressive measures over the decades. If you want to pinpoint one single point, one single issue in Pakistan, that is military's oppressive measures in these two provinces. So as a result, over the decades, these marginalizations, these negligence, exploitation of resources, they turned into either political movements or an extremist movement, as we have seen in Balochistan.
Yeah, and so part of that, the military campaign in those regions is also to do with the disappearances, isn't it? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Actually, I think disappearance or forced disappearance, it's a big issue of human rights. It's a very sad and shameful for Pakistani military. Not Pakistan, because Pakistan military basically has been running the country for over 7 decades, that its own people are disappeared in the country. And there is no court that can take their issues. There is no police which can listen their cases. And when there is no platform for these people, then they resort to these terrorist activities.
Yeah, so it's a manifestation of those.
I totally agree.
Right. And Professor Chen, is there a link to the Uyghurs? Is there sympathy from, Balochistan, for example, BLA, for the Uyghurs in China and their plight?
There are reports and rumors on this, but so far we don't see much evidence. Yeah, and of course we know that in China, Chinese government always say this that the Uyghur people, Eastern Turkestan independence movement, they receive a lot of support from outside terrorist groups. But I think in China that the situation in Xinjiang is quite different from the situation we saw in Balochistan. It's quite unlikely, to see a connection or cooperation between both sides.
Briefly, some analysts have talked about the rise of the Taliban, or Taliban taking control in Afghanistan, as another reason why perhaps violence, more insurgency is occurring.
Actually, I think there is a gap between the perspective of Pakistan and China. Pakistan repeatedly put more blame on Taliban governments, although Taliban is basically created by Pakistani military in 1996. But when I read the Chinese text, they are basically not too much accusing Taliban for this issue. They have asserted Taliban on different issues like giving more rights to women, ensure that Afghanistan territory is not used by any kind of elements. But I feel China is not as blunt to Taliban as is Pakistani government. And I feel that Pakistani military want to put blame on someone else as of its inefficiency and its lack of writ on its own area.
Right, I see. That's very interesting. Now, during his Islamabad trip, Lee inaugurated the new $230 million Gwadar International Airport, though he did this remotely, 1,400 kilometers away for security reasons. The airport is located in Balochistan province and is part of the more than $60 billion series of infrastructure and energy projects known as the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC, which was formally launched during Xi Jinping's 2015 visit. The series of power plants, gas pipelines and highways is in turn part of Xi's ambitious Belt and Road initiative, though CPEC predated Belt and Road. On this trip, Lee and Shehbaz signed a further 13 cooperation agreements related to the economic corridor to create an, quote, upgraded version of the corridor. In this map, we can see the connection from Kashgar in China's Xinjiang province to Gwadar port in Pakistan's Balochistan province, avoiding the Indian Ocean and the strategic Malacca Strait. Professor Chen, let me come to you. What benefits do these Chinese investments, what do they bring to China?
Okay, if you look at the map and you see the location of the Guadalport, you know that the CPC actually will create a tunnel, for China to get the energy from all the way from the Indian Ocean. Yeah, because you know that China always faces a so-called Malacca dilemma. That is, most of the energy sources that China get has to go through, Malacca Strait. So in the past years, China always tried to build a second route. That is to get the oil or gas from Indian Ocean directly. So CPC, of course, for Pakistan, it is a very good project for them to get, all these infrastructure projects in the country, in the rural areas. But for China, it is a direct route to get everything all the way from the Indian Ocean. So China always wanted to get all these things done as soon as possible. And so Guadalport is the key. And all these energy routes will eventually go to Xinjiang, go to the city of Kashgar. And so China's western provinces will get a lot of energy support.
Right. Dr. Ali, as well as, that kind of alternative route or contingency trade route, as Professor has been talking about, what other benefits does China get? And if you can contrast that also with the benefits for Pakistan.
First, I think I don't know when it will happen that this Guadalport and this CPEC will work as an alternative energy source for China. But suppose if we think that things moves forward as planned, I think through this China will increase its influence in South Asia, in the Indian Ocean. It will provide a connection with the Middle East, especially Arab Gulf states, from which a big source of China's energy comes. China would also ensure the safety and diversification of its energy and trade routes. Then we see that the whole region will come under broader BRI connectivity. Bilaterally, I think if it's successful, then it can increase China's influence in Pakistan. It will bring Chinese investment, China's soft power. It will also provide Chinese companies a platform for Chinese companies to invest in a more conducive ways.
So you see it as well as being kind of like, the Malacca dilemma as being an issue for perhaps for wartime. I think I picked up that you were talking about the US-China rivalry and basically extending its power and its reach more globally for China through this, allowing China to do that.
It partially could provide China an outlet, but its actual execution, I think it will take a long time.
And if Professor Chen, I'll come to you now. How about for Pakistan? Because the relationship between Pakistan and China has been described as sweeter than honey. I think this is the full original quote: higher than the mountains, deeper than the oceans, stronger than steel, and sweeter than honey. Is it sweeter than honey? And there's a lot of debt, isn't there?
Okay, well, you have to look at the strategic situation in the whole region. We know that Pakistan had a problem with India for decades. And China and India, they also don't like each other. So it's very natural for China and Pakistan to become friends and become strategic partners. But this China-Pakistani relationship is more like a one-sided dependence. That is, Pakistan depends more on China than China depends on Pakistan. You look at trade, every year that Chinese sell like 30 billion of goods to Pakistan, but Pakistan only sells 3 billion of goods to China. So even in trade, there is a one-sided dependence. So I think that for Pakistan, they need China more than China need Pakistan. But of course, the main reason is strategic, and the Indian is their main strategic rival.
Right. So India driving them together. Dr. Ali, just a little bit more on the debt situation. Is Pakistan, heading towards default?
Actually, if Pakistan did not improve its economic condition, industrializations, and especially export-oriented products, then certainly it would have severe debts not only due by China, but also by other countries.
Right. Okay. So you don't see that necessarily China is a major part. 30%, I think, is owed to China.
Yes, actually, it's not a major. Pakistan also owes a lot to other countries, especially to IMF and World Bank. So it all depends upon how Pakistan addresses its domestic economic conditions.
Right, okay. As China and Pakistan's economic relationship sees some strain with mounting debt, their military ties are becoming more prominent. China is Pakistan's largest source of major arms. According to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, Pakistan received 44% of all major arms exports from China between 2000 and 2023. For example, Pakistan's Haida battle tank is a variant of the Chinese VT-4 tank, and Pakistan has procured Chinese fighter jet J-10C, Vigorous Dragon, Wing Lun 2 armed drones, and ordered 8 Hangar-class diesel attack submarines. Furthermore, Islamabad and Beijing are jointly developing the jet fighter JF-17 PFX, an advanced new version of the JF-17. And they have also jointly constructed the Al-Khalid main battle tank. So, Professor Chen, this is a very strong military relationship, as we could see. Pakistan denies that China is helping in its ballistic missile program, but the US has just in September sanctioned Chinese companies for what it says was, let me get the right words, knowingly transferring equipment under missile technology restrictions. What kind of a threat does, the support of Pakistan by China, especially in nuclear weapons, what threat does that pose to the United States and to India?
Well, Pakistan already a nuclear power, nuclear state. They already have nuclear weapons. But when we talk about the military cooperation, what the international society now is trying to do is to prevent development and also proliferation of ballistic missiles. Because if you acquire a ballistic missile, then you could project your military power to a much longer distance. So there is an international, I would say, mechanism preventing the transfer or selling of such technologies. But I think for Pakistan to acquire a longer longer distance ballistic missile, it's a natural consequence for any country, to strengthen its own security. And we see that China and Pakistan already jointly developed fighter jets and also other high technology arms. So I think that in future, this is an area that we also have to watch.
Right, yeah. And Dr. Ali, so, how big a concern is it for the United States?
I think actually this is the recent US sanction on China is more a bilateral. It's not by any international body or any international regimes. So it's bilateral, and I see it's more in the context of US-China rivalry. US has been imposing sanction on China in many other ways. Yes, China-Pakistan has a cooperation in missiles during 70s and 80s. But as China entered into international non-proliferation regimes, we see China acting more in line with international standards. So I do not see this really big issue. I see more this in the context of Sino-US rivalry.
Right. Okay. Now, a very final question, Professor Chen. We talked about the description of the China-Pakistan relationship, sweeter than honey. In June of this year, when the Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz visited China, Chinese President Xi Jinping emphasized this ironclad friendship between Pakistan, said that it will remain strong over time. Do you see the current strains, particularly obviously the insurgency, attacks on Chinese nationals, do you see that as a sort of temporary issue that can be managed, Or do you see that this will become much more of a problem, as you said, as the investment grows in Pakistan?
I think we will see more cases like this in future. The reason is simple, because right now the more Chinese investment projects and infrastructure projects are being done in Pakistan, then China's interest in Pakistan will be more and deeper. And China and Pakistan, in terms of the culture, religion, are totally different. And you see those Chinese projects in many countries, they don't really respect the local cultural religion. They don't. So you will see more clashes between the Chinese companies and the Chinese citizens and also the countries where they work. And Pakistan, we will see more cases like this in future. Yeah.
Dr. Ali, very final words. Will the relationship between China and Pakistan survive?
Certainly, actually, this relationship is grounded in geography, long history, mutual support, and a public level. I don't think that the issue of cultural differences would be a major issue in this relationship. We see that recently China is improving its relationship with Saudi Arabia at cultural, at people-to-people level. The problem comes as Pakistani state, especially military and intelligence agency, if they continue to promote religious extremists, and when you promote them and you cannot control them, then they could become a problem for any country, and it could also become a problem for China. But giving in view the trajectory of the relationship, China might take cautious approach, slow down the pace of its investment, but it won't, just end up this relationship. It will continue, might be with less, a little lower than Himalayas, and little lesser than honey, but it will remain in it's a necessity of both countries. It has a deep roots.
Too much in both countries' interests.
Yep.
Right. We'll have to end it there. Thank you so much, Dr. Ghulam Ali and Professor Mumin Chen. If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching our show today. Stay safe and see you next time.